Hey there everybody, Pete Pardo from Tranquility. We are here for part two of my top hard rock and heavy metal albums of the 70s. But of course, this time we're going to go a little bit on the underground. So the first time around, we talked about a lot of albums from bands that, pretty much everybody's familiar with. So, your Black Sabbaths, your Deep Purple, Rainbow and Zeppelin and, all the people, Uriah Heep, all the normal bands that we would think of, right, off the top of our head. Mostly signed to major labels, did major tours, so on and so forth. But as you well know, there's a ton of bands who were kind of floating around underneath the surface all throughout the 70s. And of course, it goes on to the 80s as well. Some of them who had signed to major labels, maybe released an album or two, then kind of faded into obscurity. Some of them who recorded albums, maybe self-released them or recorded material and never released them officially till like years later. It came out on CD or LP. So these are the bands that I'm talking about. And there's so many good ones. And hopefully you're going to hear about some today that you've never heard of before and that you'll want to investigate. But the funny thing is, as I was kind of searching through my collection, I realized just how much of this sort of thing I actually own. So it would be impossible to include them all on one episode. So we're probably going to have to do a part 3 of this so I can pull out all the nuggets that I kind of forgot. So if you haven't seen or heard me talk about kind of your favorite kind of underground hard rock and metal fan from the 70s today, I apologize. Hopefully we'll get to them next time. Throw me a comment, in the comments section, and you want to mention some bands that you think should have been included. I'll try to get to them next time as long as I have something by them. So anyway, let's get started. I kind of don't know where to start. I got stacks of stuff sitting here. These are all from the 70s, so 1970 to 1979. I don't have them in any real order, so forgive me. There's just too much stuff, but I think you'll enjoy some of this. So the first one I'm going to pull out is a band that I always like quite a bit. Some might argue that these guys may be better off sitting in kind of like the heavy progressive rock area. I don't know. I think at least this album, is a bona fide hard rock proto-metal classic. I'm talking about Britain's Atomic Rooster. Death Walks Behind You. That's it right there. Kind of a creepy cover. So, of course, we've got, Vincent Crane on Hammond organ. He came from Crazy World of Arthur Brown. We've got John Duquesne on guitar. And, Mr. Hammond on drums. I forget his first name. Hold on here. Paul Hammond. Basically, if you've never listened to Atomic Rooster before, kind of take the, maybe like that early Deep Purple Uriah Heep sound in a trio format. So like a power trio, but just guitar, organ, and drums. Pretty cool, really heavy, real doomy sounding, heavy guitar riffs, heavy Hammond organ, real chilling vocals, and, tunes like Death Walks Behind You, Tomorrow Night, 7th Street, Sleeping for Years, I Can't Take No More, Nobody Else, Gerhazer. I mean, some really, really good, heavy tunes. Ripping guitar work, ripping Hammond organ. Can't say enough about this album. Do not miss that. If you haven't checked out Atomic Rooster, that's the album to get. Their first self-titled album is very, very good as well. But a great, great band. Next, a band from Texas. I always like quite a bit. They got a whole bunch of albums. And really, any of their first 4 or 5, actually, they're all really good, but the first 4, maybe 5 are really, really excellent. I'm talking about Blood Rock. I like their debut the best. For me, this one just kind of does it all. Again, they do that kind of Hammond organ thing with a lot of the groove of Grand Funk Railroad. So cool, heavy blues rock riffs, a lot of Hammond, really good vocals, just killer tunes. Gotta Find a Way, Castle of Thoughts, Fatback, Melvin Laid an Egg is a great, great heavy tune with thunderous groove. Fantastic piece of architecture. Gimme Your Head, Timepiece, great tune. A really, really good band. A lot of folks remember Blood Rock on their second album. They had that tune DOA, which was kind of like a cult early FM classic, but good band. Really good band. All right, this next band I love, and they only recorded 2 albums. Actually, their first album was recorded in '69. The second was '70, or 70, '71, something like that. So they deserve to be here. One of the unsung heroes of that early proto-metal sound that just don't get enough credit, except for people in the know. And I'm talking about Brooklyn, New York's Sir Lord Baltimore. Okay? They had an album called Kingdom Come and self-titled Sir Lord Baltimore album, and then they disappeared off the face of the earth. Bone-crunching heavy. Again, a trio, guitar, bass, drums, okay? And as heavy as anything Sabbath, Zeppelin, and Purple were doing at the time. Seriously, folks, this is some great, great stuff. A couple of their tunes have that slight, maybe early punky edge that we kind of heard a little bit with the Stooges and the MC5, kind of, but not really. This is more metallic, more metal, okay? Again, there was no heavy metal at the time, but this is heavy stuff. If you can get a copy of this CD, it's got both albums on one. They're both equally good, highly recommended. Sir Lord Baltimore. Remember that one. All right, jumping around here. Here's a band from Florida, I believe. Florida Philly connection. They were originally from one and moved to the other. American band. They actually got signed to a major label back in the early '70s, and kind of America's answer to Black Sabbath, sort of, with a little bit of the Beatles, some of the vocal harmonies, as well as a healthy dose of Grand Funk Railroad. Talking about the band Bang. Now, this is a box set. I know I should be showing you an album. All 4 of their first 4 albums are included in this particular box set. The box set's called Bullets, from Rise Above a few years ago. My favorite album by them is probably their self-titled Bang album, but also their their third album also is quite good. Hold on a second here, because I forget the album title, and it's written here, and it's like Microscopic. Mother, Bow to the King. Okay. But I like their second album. You can get, it's the one right there. Okay. Really, really good band. Trio again. Just great riffs. Really good riffs. A lot of really cool grooves. Some tunes are heavy, really heavy, like in a Black Sabbath way. They also do some kind of Zeppelin-ish stuff too, with a little bit of mellow stuff here and there, a little acoustic work, and a little bit of blues. But a really, really good band that actually got back together a few years ago. I got to see them live not too long ago, and they're still touring. Hopefully, they'll do some new music. Very, very good. Bang. Do not miss that. Okay, where to next? All right, we're going to go late in the 70s here. This is a band that I missed out the first time around. They should have been included in my other episode, so I apologize, but I'm putting them in here. They were signed to a major label, okay? Many will remember that these guys were on the same Casablanca Records label that started up by Kiss. Of course, I'm talking about Angel, right? I happen to like their debut the best, but Hell of a Band is also really, really good. You really can't go wrong with most of the Angel albums. The first one is definitely hard rock with a kind of really heavy Deep Purple influence. Greg Giuffria's keyboards are amazing on here. You got Punky Meadows on guitar. Really, really good. Leads off of this tune called The Tower, which is just one of their best songs ever. I just really like this album a lot. But again, their first 2 are really, really, really strong. And a band that just, you would think on Casablanca, Kiss's label, they would really kind of take off, but they just never really hit the heights that I think the label and some of the fans kind of expected them to, which is a shame. But a really good band. All right, jumping around. This next band, UK band, Alan Holdsworth. Most folks don't normally associate Holdsworth with heavy rock, right? Well, a very, very early band he was in before he went to join Soft Machine and Gong and Lifetime, and then all the solo stuff he did in UK as well. He was in a band called Tempest. Okay? This is their debut, self-titled, really, really good hard rock, kind of Cream-ish. I think this is from 1973, with Holdsworth's crazy lead guitars and riffs. Paul Williams is on vocals. He would later join Holdsworth's solo band, probably about 7, 8, 10 years later. But a really, really good album. he wouldn't stay long because Holdsworth in the 70s, in the early mid-70s, would just move from project to project, band to band to band. That's kind of what he did until he settled on a solo career. But this is a very, very good album if you like that kind of heavy blues rock of like Cream. Really good stuff. All right. This one I dig a lot. So, remember the early days of Deep Purple? Blackmore, Lord, Pace, Rod Evans, Nick Simper. Well, after their third album together, Simper and Evans given the heave-ho for Ian Gillan and Roger Glover to come in. So Rod Evans went and formed another band, which, well, anyway, we'll get to them next. But Mr. Simper went and formed a band called Warhorse, okay? This is their album called Red Sea. They only released 2 albums. And if you loved like the early Deep Purple sound, he basically went and replicated the same thing in Warhorse. And with him, he brought, let's see, who does he got here with him? So on guitar, he's got Peter Parks, Mac Poole on drums, Ashley Holt on vocals, who would later go on to record and tour with Rick Wakeman, and Frank Wilson on organ and piano and keyboards. Like I said, really good. It's just like the Deep Purple formula all over again. Just really, really good stuff. Great Hammond organ, ripping Blackmore style guitar work. Ashley Holt's high pitched vocals. Okay, a must. Okay, I don't have it. It's on the shelf, but I'm going to talk about it because you have to have this one. Captain Beyond. Okay, that is the band that Rod Evans wound up forming with various other guys, kind of like a supergroup. Their debut album is fantastic. It definitely should be included in this. Probably should have been included in my first episode, but for the next episode, I'm actually going to show it to you. I don't want to just get up and go grab it, but debut from Captain Beyond, do want to mention that. Okay, another really cool band. Early 70s, heavy, proto-metal, blues rock, a band called Toad. This is their self-titled. All right, sorry for the glare. If you just like ripping guitar and great grooves and really cool vocals and kind of bluesy but heavy, I can't recommend this enough. A band I just happened to discover one day and love it to death. Really, really good stuff. All right, going to the U.S. here for a band called Tin House. Another really good, whoops, yeah, okay, here we go. See all sorts of glare there. There are the guys right there. Trio, power trio stuff, ripping guitar. It's pretty heavy. Rick Derringer had a little bit to do with the band. Really, really good stuff. They were signed to a major label and then bloop, gone. But dig this one a lot. It's been reissued. Get the reissue. It's remastered. Really, really cool album. All right. Shoot on it over to Sweden. So, a lot of people know that obviously Sweden's got a lot going on today with a lot of younger bands who are doing kind of this style, right? That 70s style hard rock and proto-metal and little bits of doom. They do it really well. They know their classic rock over in Sweden. However, one of the earliest bands to kind of dabble in this mostly American and British sound back in the day was a band called November. A great band. Now, if you go to investigate November, all of their albums, they've got about 3 or 4 of them, all of their albums are sung in Swedish. But the music is so good. Just think of Cream, but heavier. Okay? Cream mixed with some slightly Sabbathy and Zeppelin-y guitars. All right? Really, really great tunes. Throw a little Mountain in there as well. Okay? Little Mountain. This is probably my favorite by them. It's the 2A album. There are the guys on the front. Can you see that? Can you see it? Dig it a lot. Don't let the Swedish vocals scare you off because if you like really good 70s guitar rock, okay, with a blues edge, November is the deal. Okay? All right, let's move over to Germany. I dig this band a lot. I think I'm going to kind of call them, the term we use nowadays, like a cult rock. It's kind of a term that gets thrown around a lot. So that's basically a band that the lyrical themes are kind of lurid a little bit, maybe a little horror themed, okay? Maybe some satanic stuff going around, but definitely a mix of psychedelic and like 70s hard rock, cult rock, right? Well, this is a band called Message, okay, from Books and Dreams. You just look at that cover, you know, a little bit, they got that little bit of horror element going on there. Same with the back. So there's some mystical shit going on here. A really, really good album. Pretty heavy. Definitely rocking. Message is the name of the band. They have a couple releases, but this is my favorite one. All right. Over to Australia. Okay, we're going all the way on the other side of the world here. A band that started out as just kind of like a teeny bopper pop group. And then all of a sudden started to incorporate like prog and heavy rock tendencies. I'm talking about Master's Apprentices. The album I'm talking about is Choice Cuts, but this is a 2-on-1. This also has Toast of Panama Red. Really good. Heavy stuff. In fact, Sweden's Opeth, Michael Ackerfeldt, is a huge fan of this band. And rightfully so, because they're really good. There's some tunes on here that are really, really heavy. Man, we're getting some glare today. That's the guys. But Choice Cuts is a blistering album. I highly recommend it. Again, kind of that, you know, heavy rock, bits of Sabbath, bits of Zeppelin, but some folky stuff going on in there as well a little bit of prog. Really, really good stuff. All right. 1976, American band. Released 3 albums and then kind of disappeared. Really strong albums. A band who actually were a few years ahead of their time, because I think like when they started releasing albums, again, their sound borrowed a little bit from Purple, little bits of Heap, a little bit of Angel, but more importantly, kind of like that, almost like that new wave of British heavy metal sound, right? But they were a few years before. And I think if these guys would have started recording around 80, 81, 82, 83, I think they would have really taken off. But they were a few years ahead of their time. I'm talking about Legs Diamond. All 3 of their first albums are just great, but I really like the debut. Again, if you love ripping Deep Purple, think of In Rock mixed with Burn a little bit, but with that kind of that more commercial edge that Angel brought to the table. That's kind of like Legs Diamond for me. Dig them a lot, but investigate their first 3 albums. Really good. Okay, we're going to go back to Australia again. We're like jumping all over creation here. Here's a really cool, heavy band that, again, people in the know love a lot, but you don't really hear, you know, they never really got much exposure here in North America. But those who have been willing to investigate to find out some of these, you know, underground bands have found these guys and loved them a lot. And they're called Buffalo. Okay, so this the album I'm talking about is called Volcanic Rock, but this one has both Volcanic Rock and Only Want You for Your Body. Both very good, but Volcanic Rock is my favorite. One of the members of the band actually went and formed Rose Tattoo after these guys broke up. Most people have heard of Rose Tattoo. They made a little name for themselves in the 80s, but Buffalo, quite heavy. Big brontosaurus guitar riffs, kind of like a biker mentality to the music. Really, really good stuff. Heavy, 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 heavy. All right, we're going to go over to Germany for a cool band that mixed blistering heavy rock with bits of psych and blues. I'm talking about a band called Geronimo, self-titled. I dig this one a lot. Again, they kind of take like a little bits of Cream and the early Scorpion sound. Made a little bit of Sabbath as well, some Stones. I dig this a lot, some really cool tunes, and it's pretty heavy in spots too. They also released a couple albums. All of them are pretty noteworthy. All right. A very cool band that I discovered a few years ago. This is their debut self-titled album. It's absolutely kick-ass. Phenomenal guitar playing, especially if you kind of like maybe like the style of Frank Marino. Talking about Stray Dog. They were actually signed to Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Manticora Records label, released a couple of albums, all decent, each one completely different than the one that came before it. They did like a full-on prog album and kind of like more of like a mainstream rock album. This, though, is the album to get. There's the guys right there. Like I said, unbelievable guitars. Vocals are great. The tunes are memorable. They're heavy. Just really, really good stuff, guys. Stray Dog. Do not miss that. All right. A band, I believe from Virginia, that recorded some music like in their teenagers in their parents' basement. Never released anything. Broke up after like a year of playing together, whatever. But of course, held on to those recordings, which got released years later. The band I'm talking about is called Sabatis, Warning in the Sky. This is a lot of fun if you can get your hands on it. It was released on CD a couple of years ago by Jargon Records. Again, probably something never meant to be released, but the fact that it did is pretty cool. These guys were obviously very into like Vanilla Fudge and Iron Butterfly, little bits of the Doors, little bits of Sabbath. You would think with the name like Sabatis, it would be heavier than it is. Not a very guitar-heavy album. The guitar is a little cleaner sounding, but the organ is pretty cranking on here. The tunes are very, very cool, and the lyrics are very kind of evilish sounding. So I think a band that, if they would have stayed together and matured a little bit, could have done some really cool things. But this is a very cool little nugget from the vaults that I recommend. All right, another band. I believe these guys are UK. Forgive me for not doing my homework on this. I've had this for a little while. I like it a lot. A 4-piece called Iron Claw. Again, really, really cool stuff. This just reminds me I didn't bring out the Necromandus album. Next time. A lot of these are reminding me of other ones that I should have brought out. Anyway, Iron Claw. This is a really, really good proto-metal album. A lot of really great riffs. Let's see, show you guys on the back. Really cool stuff. Another one to check out. Here's a band. I believe these guys are from Texas, if I am not mistaken. A power trio. Really good stuff. This is very, very rare. I actually paid a good amount of money to get this on CD because it's not. You can get it on vinyl, but I don't have a vinyl record player, so I am all about the CDs. As you can see, this band is called Highway Robbery for Love or Money. Again, another really heavy album. Proto-metal, blues rock, cranking guitars, heavy guitars, great vocals, great rhythms. Really good tunes. Think of a heavier ZZ Top mixed with a bit of Montrose, a touch of Sabbath. It's kind of what you get here. Really, really, really strong stuff. All right, let me go move some of this stuff out of here. I got a lot more to go. All right. UK band. Started as basically a blues band, but got heavier, as a lot of those blues bands did from England around that time. They wanted to follow the heavy rock bands who were all the rage at the time. Talking about the Groundhogs. This is their album called Split. Okay? Really, really great guitar work. All right? These guys were actually big on the festival circuit in London, England, and most of Europe. Never really caught on here, but a really, really good band. If you I'm trying to think of like a heavier 10 Years After, Bits of Cream, a little bit of Mountain, heavier Chicken Shack, that sort of thing. Quite good. All right. Also, European band, actually a British band. So remember Ken Hensley was in the Gods and Toe Fat, and then went and joined Uriah Heep. Well, right before he made the jump to Uriah Heep, did another recording, and there was some kind of issue with what they could call themselves because he was kind of making the transition. So he got together with some guys from Toe Fat and the Gods and put out an album under the name of Head Machine called Orgasm. But if you like that early Uriah Heep sound and some of the Gods and some of Toe Fat, just that kind of psych, heavy rock and blues type of thing, this is a really, really good album. Most people don't even know that this is a Ken Hensley album or Ken Hensley and Company album, but it's quite good, well worth seeking out. All right, another good one. Maybe could have fit in the prog episode, but I think it's heavy enough and to be included here. I am talking about the album from Fuzzy Duck. I know, great name for a band, right? Again, if you love Deep Purple and Uriah Heep, cranking Hammond organ, killer guitar, great vocals. Little bits of Grand Funk Railroad in there as well, too. I really dig this one a lot. Again, could be kind of proggy, but it's enough hard rock to be included here. Very similar to them. That just reminds me, I didn't bring out the orangutan one. See, I got too much. Too much. Going to be 3 episodes, maybe 4. From Japan, Flight Egg. Oh no, it's Flight Egg. Short for fried egg, right? Anyway, another really cool kind of Deep Purple / psych album. Good heavy rock, kind of acid rock, so to speak. The egg right there. Again, another really cool Rarity. Another cool band called Euclid. It's Heavy Equipment. This is a U.S. band. I believe they're from the Ohio area. Really good heavy rock. This is, I believe, 1970. Again, they had all the goods to make it, but they just did not. Really cool tunes. They do a pretty blistering version of Give Me Some Lovin', obviously by the Spencer Davis Group, which is pretty cool. All right, from Germany, Excalibur. Another cool band, trio. Think of the early Scorpion sound. Lonesome Crow specifically. Pretty cool stuff. I forgot Epitaph, another band that I need to mention. Really, really good heavy rock. Here's one. These guys were on Swan Song Records. And I didn't mention Bad Company in that last episode, and I probably should have, because that first album is pretty rocking, really good hard rock. But anyway, these guys were a supergroup formed, signed to Swan Song right around the same, or maybe shortly thereafter, Bad Company, called Detective. Okay, so who's in this band? Tony Kaye, ex of Yes on keyboards, Michael DeBar on lead vocals, okay, John Hyde on drums, Michael Monarch on guitars, Bobby Pickett on bass. Okay, one of the guys from Steppenwolf, and these guys really did a great job on this album. This is a pretty damn rockin' album in the grand tradition of classic Zeppelin. It's heavy. In fact, I think this album is heavier than any Bad Company album. You heard that right there. Great vocals, really cool stuff. The drummer does a lot of cool Bonham style stuff on there. Very good, very good. All right, so from there, band is called Armageddon. Okay, a band that formed out of the ashes of the Yardbirds in the early Renaissance. Okay, I believe this was Keith Relf, I believe, in this band. Hold on, let's find out exactly who's in this band. All right, let's see. Keith Relf, exactly. Martin Pooh, Bobby Caldwell. We know who he is, right? He's also in Captain Beyond. And Louis Sinamo on bass. Pretty heavy rockin' album. Probably the heaviest album that Keith Relf was ever involved in, right? But this kind of paved the way for the Captain Beyond stuff, because Caldwell would leave this band and go on to there. But this is a really good one. We're going to go to Canada, kind of trying to finish up here. A band, I had a lot of choices here, right? The early stuff is actually pretty damn good. Most people know this band for the Nature of the Beast album, which came out in the early 80s, and that's a great album, okay? But they have a lot of other really strong albums that came out in the 70s. So I'm talking about April Wine. This is a 2-on-1 here. Both of these were released late in the 70s, I believe 78 and 79. So we've got First Glance and Harder, Faster. You can't go wrong with either one of them. Kick-ass Canadian hard rock. You know, most people think of Canada, in hard rock or metal, of course you think of Rush and you think of Triumph. Maybe you think of Max Webster. But these guys cannot be denied. A really, really underrated band, April Wine. In fact, some of you have asked for me to do an artist retrospective show on April Wine, and I just might do that because they've got a lot of really good material. All right, now, no show like this can be without this band. Now, technically, they did not release any albums in the 70s. Okay, most of their recorded official albums came out in the 80s and beyond, and they're still recording today. But this band were actually very active in the 70s. They played a lot of live shows, and they recorded a bunch of stuff that they never actually put onto albums. Well, thankfully, Relapse Records a number of years ago released a couple of volumes of recordings from the band from the 70s. Okay, the first one is probably my favorite, and it's called First Days Here, the Vintage Collection. I am talking about Pentagram. Okay, one of the godfathers of Doom. I know that Sabbath is considered the godfather of Doom, but shortly thereafter in Sabbath's wake came Pentagram. They're from the Washington, D.C. area, and their stuff is heavy Doom, heavy blues rock with some really wild lyrics, but I think if you're talking Doom, you cannot not mention Pentagram. And again, if you get this collection here, you get all their cool stuff from the 70s that they recorded. And a lot of these tunes they actually went and re-recorded on albums they released in the 80s when they finally started officially doing that. But here's some of the early recordings. Some of it's a little rough, but man, good stuff. All right, down to Texas. I haven't really dabbled in much Southern rock here, but this band is technically a Southern rock band. And their first album is so damn heavy that it's got to be included here. I'm talking about Point Blank, their first album. This is just a killer album. Think of like ZZ Top on steroids with a bit of the attitude of Lynyrd Skynyrd. You know, Free Man, Moving, Wandering, Bad Bees, That's the Law, Lone Star Fool, Distance, and In This World. Cranking guitar work. Cranking guitar work. Just a rowdy bunch of guys that actually released a lot of really good albums, but man, that is my favorite. All right, we're going to shoot up to Canada for a band that I think more people need to know about. And for me, their first two albums, their first three, but the first two are the best. But I'm talking about Moxie. All right, another killer Canadian band that their first two albums remind me a lot of that first Montrose album. That's how good it is. Just great guitar work. In fact, Tommy Bolin, okay, from the James Gang, briefly with Deep Purple, and had some solo stuff. Before he died, did some recording with these guys. He recorded some solos for this album, but the band are perfectly capable on their own without him. It's just great vocals, ripping guitar work, memorable tunes. This is just a really good, heavy rock album. This is a party album to crank open a couple of beers and just, you know, just enjoy the hell out of it. Really, really good. All right, we're down to the final three, guys, at a half hour. Here's a band, very, very early 70s, British band. Again, if you love the heavy rock stuff that Cream did, that really heavy blues rock, the band's called May Blitz. This is a 2-on-1. It's got May Blitz and the 2nd of May. Can't go wrong with either one of them. All right, just really good, ripping power trio stuff, blistering guitar work. It's bluesy. It's got some good fuzz. I dig that a lot. Very underrated band. And then over to Germany. Again, a band that probably could be included on the prog show because a lot of what they did was prog, but their early albums are totally like that kind of hard rock, kind of like that Deep Purple, right? Style of thing with the heavy Hammond organ, the blistering blues rock guitar with lots of fuzz. I'm talking about Birth Control. You're going to love this cover if you haven't seen it. Hoodoo Man. Look at those big hoodoos, right? Anyway, just a couple tunes on here. 6 as a matter of fact, but these guys were a lot of fun. A great, great underrated German band that had so many good albums. Their first like 4 or 5 are just spectacular, but I kind of like this one the best because it's got the title track Hoodoo Man, which is great, and of course it's got Gamma Ray. Gamma Ray is a great tune. Wouldn't be surprised if that song influenced Kai Hansen and his band Gamma Ray. But anyway, Suicide, Get Down to Your Fate, Hoodoo Man, Gamma Ray, Bye. Just a great, great album. Ripping Hammond organ and guitar. Gotta love it. The last band I'm going to talk about today, this is pretty obscure stuff here from the UK. Again, if you love that heavy Hammond organ, heavy guitar, okay, with some really kind of lurid lyrical themes, right? I'd say these guys were probably a kindred spirit to Atomic Rooster. The band is called Bodkin, Bodkin. To my knowledge, this is the only album they ever did. Pretty chilling stuff. Again, the Hammond organ is killer. The guitars are heavy, ripping. And then you got, you know, some really kind of creepy tunes. Most of them are pretty lengthy. Just a really cool album. And, you know, there's all sorts of, like, wild shit on this, you know, re-release here. This is actually pretty cool. Look at that. Can you see that? Yes. So, anyway, hopefully you've had a chance to either eat your lunch or dinner or drink a couple beers while we go through obscure hard rock and metal of the 70s. Like I said, there's a lot more. I missed out on a lot of stuff. You can't cover it all, right? We'd be here for hours. So let's plan on doing a part 3 of this because I had a lot of fun doing this. Just so much good stuff. And so your homework is to start investigating some of this stuff. Go onto a lot of this stuff is on YouTube. You can listen to the albums, see what you think, and then go find a copy. You can go to Discogs, you can go to Amazon, wherever. Order yourself a copy of these on CD or LP. Well worth it. A lot of these are really, really great albums that just nobody ever talks about, but people need to discover if you haven't already. So I am Pete Pardo. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube. Stuff we've got coming up. We've got part 2 of the prog episode, top prog albums of the 70s. That's also going in the underground, right? We're recording it tomorrow. It's going to be live this weekend. Myself and a special guest of mine are going to be doing a Black Sabbath history of artist retrospective. That's coming up. We've got another new product showcase coming up probably sometime next week. I'm also planning a show all about Yes, okay, all about the Scorpions, all about Michael Schenker Group. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. We just have to find time to do it all. And I am also, because I'm loving doing the 70s thing, I'm going to do my top live albums from the 70s. That's coming up probably during the week as well, because I can crank that one out. And I love talking about live albums from the 70s, because for me, the best live albums ever released were from the 70s. And there's a lot of great ones. From I'm going to do prog, hard rock, metal, classic rock, the whole nine. It's all going to be included in one. Southern rock, it's all going to be in one. So anyway, look out for that. So till next time, take care, have a good one, and we'll see you real soon.